Hi, I'm Rod Ortiz from modernecclesia.com, and today I'm beginning a brand new video series that I'm really excited about. Today's guest is, well, my first guest, I should say, for this video series is Israel Ramos. Now, before I tell you a little bit more about him, I first want to highlight a situation that I think a lot of us probably find ourselves in, and it's this. Perhaps you live close to a university or a community college, and you want to know how you as a church can reach out to students on that university campus. Well, our guest today is going to help us talk through that and introduce us to some resources on how to become a university church. So Israel, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Riley.
Now, Israel, before we get into the manual real quick, I first want to bring in just a little bit about your background. I know you were involved, you helped to co-found a conference called Generation of Youth for Christ some years ago. Could you tell us maybe just a little bit more about that? How long has it been going on? How many people are attending now these conferences? That sort of thing.
Sure. Well, Generation of Youth for Christ is what it was called. GYC started off as a small grassroots movement of young people. Started with about 200 people. Grew from there to about 400 last year. I think they had about 7,000 people, and so
Okay.
it's something that is started here in the U.S. Now it's kind of gotten a little bit of a global kick, and we're excited to see what God is doing. As a result of public campus ministry, it'll interest you to know that as a result of public campus ministry, this is kind of what was sparked by students that were involved in public universities.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you've clearly had experience for a while now working with young people, getting them involved in mission, helping to co-found this conference. It's doing really, really well. What are you doing now professionally in your professional pastoral role?
I work with the Center for Adventist Ministry to Public University Students. Is a ministry that reaches out to Seventh Adventist young people and their friends here in the state of Michigan. The Seventh Adventist Church, for the longest time, has had its own educational institution system. You work at Andrews University, and for this reason, uh, most of our church's money has been spent on Adventist institutions, but we realize now that more than 75%, that's on the conservative end, more than 75% of our Adventist young people are attending non-Adventist universities, and so
Wow.
that's why we have this center here in Michigan.
Yeah, that those are some startling numbers, by the way. Just kind of scary to think about. That's why I'm real excited about your leadership and what you guys are doing, because part of what you do is you're actually helping to train missionaries, right?
That's right.
Missionaries to be on a university campus.
Mhm. Yeah, we want to have our Adventist young people look at themselves not just as students that are trying to gain an education, but we want them to leave an eternal impact on these campuses that they're attending. They have the opportunity to interact with some of the world's brightest minds through professors or colleagues, even. And so we want them to leave the stamp of Jesus Christ on that campus, and that's what we hope to train them to do.
That's great. Love it. Hey, so let's jump into this manual. You were kind enough to give me a preview model or a preview copy of this manual, this resource that you've been working on. And I just want to ask you three questions real quick, because you talk about some steps on how to become a university church, and you talk about three distinct steps or phases. And the first one is the introductory phase. So let me just ask you this. What is the introductory phase? Who are the different parties being introduced, and who are the different parties being introduced?
Sure. Well, when you're bringing together a campus ministry into the local church, not as a parachurch organization, we're talking about an integration, which we believe is the best model. When you're doing this, it's like a marriage relationship. You just can't have these two parties together and they're going to say, hey, we're going to get married together, we're going to start a ministry together, and we're going to impact this campus around us. It's not that easy, even when both parties are interested in working together. So we have this introductory phase, and in this introductory phase, basically the campus ministry, it's getting acquainted with the work of the local church, and the
Okay.
local church is getting integrated or accustomed to having this brand new group of students integrated into the activities of the local church. And so this introductory phase normally lasts about one academic year. The church is getting to know the university group, and the university group is getting to know the church.
Okay. Now, before we move forward, could we just define some of these terms a little bit? Because in your manual, you talk about that there's actually distinction between being a university church and a church that happens to be close to a university.
Yeah. Now, the major difference between a church that is on a university town, in a university town, and a university church, this is how we define the university church. We define these churches as being churches who view as their primary responsibility the impact of this local church campus. And in order for this to work, we're not talking about just a few interested church members or an interested pastor, but we're talking about the church as a whole
Mm-hmm.
having an interest in impacting this local campus ministry. And so university churches will have three components: the work of the local church pastor, he's bought into the campus ministry; the interest of the local university student group, they want to be part of a local church, they want to be integrated into the life of the local church. They're not looking to be a parachurch organization, but a
Mm-hmm.
ministry of the local church. And then you also have complete buy-in from the board or from the church itself. They want to work together with the pastor and with the student organization. And when essentially these three groups of people come together, you will see these natural changes, these natural things that come together. And that is what we call the formation of the university church.
Okay. Now, what if, because you talk about this introductory phase, these two parties, this student organization on campus, the church, are getting introduced, getting to know each other. Uh, what if there is no student organization on campus, but there's a church, there's a university nearby, and a church says, you know what, we want to be able to connect with them somehow. What would be their next step?
Well, first of all, if the church is on the campus, they want to impact this university for Christ, and they're trying to work this campus. The very first thing that a church would do in the Seventh-day Adventist context would be, you want to find obviously Seventh-day Adventist young people. Once you find those Seventh-day Adventist young people, the introductory phase would start when that student group becomes a registered student organization, and so.
Okay.
Uh, you want to get enough young people to come together. They don't all have to be Adventists, but they all come together. They have the leadership of the pastor, the leadership of a professor that is favorable to their cause, and then they register as a student organization, which gives them access to certain benefits that the university will have. And once that is established, then the pastor would come in, introduce this student group to the church, and that would begin, in my opinion, that would begin the introductory phase. From this point on, you have about a year to get acquainted with each other.
Mm-hmm.
The church, through the student group, is getting acquainted with the university policies and restrictions and opportunities. And this would be the beginning of the introductory phase.
Perfect. Okay. So just to review a little bit, I want to make sure that I understand. You mentioned if there is not currently a student organization on campus, you said for one, there's probably already students there, but the pastor could maybe begin to maybe gather the students, find out if there's students there. They need to get sponsorship by a professor, and then they could actually register as an organization, right? So is that a little summary of what you said?
Right. That's typically how it's done in a public university context.
Perfect. Okay. So let's move on to the second one. Okay, so we've been hanging out. We've been getting to know each other a little bit, the student organization in this church. And then there's a second phase here, which you actually call the courtship phase. And you actually mentioned that there's a structural change that takes place within the church. So why do you call it the courtship phase, and what's this change that takes place?
When you are entering into a relationship, there's a separation that takes place between two people that are courting once they pass that we're just friends stage. And so after the church gets to know the student organization gets to know the church, they see the benefit of a symbiotic relationship. Obviously, you're going to want to take the next step. And I call this a
Commit.
structural change. And the structural changes when the public campus ministry, the student organization, it becomes part of the local church life. In other
Okay.
words, it becomes a department of the local church ministry. And so you have various different departments in the local Seventh-day Adventist Church. You have the Sabbath School department. You have the youth department. You have the women's ministry department. Part of those departments would have the inclusion of the public campus ministry department. This is a structural change in the local Seventh-day Adventist Church, and during that transition, once it becomes a part of the local Seventh-day Adventist Church, then you've entered into a new phase in the relationship. You're no longer just friends, you're actually committed to each other.
So that's really where the rubber meets the road, right?
That's
Where
right.
where you see the church being willing to make these changes. They're not just going to talk the talk, but they're going to say, look, we're going to create a whole other departments for this, right?
Yeah, and it will naturally bring up things that need to be ironed out, just like when you started dating your lovely wife. When I started dating my wife, the person who eventually became my wife, you commit to each other, but there are things that you need to really address. Are you going to be making enough money to make a living together?
Yes.
Are your professions going to match up, etc.
Okay, great. So those are the first two steps, and let's just mention the third phase here that you mentioned. And I think anybody that's been listening so far, they've been able to see that there's a metaphor that we've been, or that you've been talking about. There's the introductory, there's the courtship phase, and so the next logical phase, if you've been courting somebody, is the marriage phase. What describe the marriage phase for me? And you actually talk about how there's three evidences that you've kind of arrived, and you kind of started to allude to some of them already, but one of them is that there's one weekend per month that's kind of devoted to them, right?
Sure. Yeah. Once in the introductory phase, what will typically happen is the pastor, just to give you a visual of how things would probably take place, the pastor comes in the big the very beginning of the school year. You're going to have your student organization come up. You're going to say, this is our local church. I'd like to have them as part of our local church. We want to introduce them to you. You can if you're the pastor, you can say, how many of you would love to support these young people? We handed out a little card that we gave to the congregation, and we gave them different ways in which they can support their campus ministry. You can give financially. You can have the students over your house. You can provide some food for them. Food is the biggest thing for a college student. And to give them food is to give them life. And so we would do this during the introductory phase. The church would fill out the card. All these things would begin to kind of, they get implemented into the year of ministry for the church. And that's how you get to know each other. Students, church members, they're interacting. You enter then into the courtship phase. You say, hey, we've had these students here for a year. Have you enjoyed their ministry here? The church agrees. Then you say, why don't we make them a part of our church ministry? We don't just want to support them. We just don't want individual members supporting them. We want to support them as a church. And so the church board begins to adopt these young people. Hey, we're going to have one of your leaders sit on our church board. We can provide some oversight if you believe that that's necessary. And so the structural change begins to take place. This will naturally bring in some issues that need to be ironed out. Once you have the student group in your church, you're going to realize, man, this is costing us a little bit more than we expected. Our electricity bills going up. All these different things are taking place. There's cultural difference between young people and the church of yesteryears. And so during that time, you iron out these kinks. The pastor is the main person who helps out. Then those kinks are ironed out. You now have, we want to be completely integrated. We want a marriage to take place. We want one to represent both, and you want both to be represented as one. And so you have this marriage phase that you enter into. One of the things that we do is we have in this phase what we call a collegiate Sabbath. It doesn't have to take place every month. In some churches, you have it in seasons, throughout the entire school season. You're kind of ministering to college students as a whole. In some smaller contexts, you're going to have it once a month. In other contexts, you might have it once a semester, twice a semester. What makes the most important thing is that you have it consistently, that is marked out, that time for the college students becomes a part of the ministry of the local church on a consistent basis. And so that's what we call these collegiate Sabbaths. They are evangelistic outreaches to the university students.
Okay. Now, you also mention that it's really important for this campus ministry to become part of the operating expense of the church. Why is that important? And what does it communicate if a church is not willing to make it a part of the operating expense?
Oh, well, it's like two people who are married that want to have two separate bank accounts. You know, at the end of
Okay.
the day, it's not gonna be very effective in building trust and in building unity within the couple. At least in most cases, you want to ensure that the campus ministry doesn't feel like it's a stepchild, you know,
Mm.
and that it only kind of gets the crumbs from the table. And
Mm-hmm.
so until the church is willing to give the campus ministry a piece of the financial pie that it receives on a weekly basis, then the campus ministry is not, in my opinion, is not fully integrated, and you'll never be able to experience the all the blessings that come from being integrated together. And so, bringing the campus ministry into the local church, giving it on a consistent basis a piece of the funds, the financial pie that is coming in, that is being shared with all the church, it legitimizes that relationship, in my opinion.
Makes sense. And hopefully, after this marriage phase, they're going to have a beautiful marriage together and have beautiful babies as well, right?
Yeah, we don't want a divorce.
Hey, just one more question, real quick, before we kind of close it off. What are some ways that a church itself can actually go on the campus to do ministry or to do evangelism there?
Well, I guess there are many different ways. It would vary from church to church depending on the talents, the size of the church, obviously, the resources that the church has. But simple things that the church can do that can have a big impact. One of them is providing a healthy meal for the students
Okay.
and inviting the students to come. Some churches will have large potlucks after church service. You know, so the students come, they invite their friends, they listen to the message, powerful message by the pastor. Then after that, they have access to a nice meal. Other times, churches will have these booths right on campus, and they'll use that as a ministry to the church. Some of the student organizations that I know of have in Michigan here. They've set up a table and they have this fake check, you know, and they call it the 500 $500 question. If you can
Okay.
show me from the Bible how, you know, the Sabbath was changed, for example, from Saturday to Sunday, we'll give you $500 cash. And so you have a flock of students that come in, and they'll begin to call their grandmas, you know, or the pastors or whatever. And this is something that attracts people. Other times we've had churches that go out. They might have some health professionals, people that know massage therapy,
Mm-hmm.
or nurses or doctors even. They'll set up a table. They'll offer free massage or free medical consultation that
Mm.
brings in students. And sometimes you just set up a booth and you ask people if they want Bible studies, or you set up signs, you know, like those little yard signs,
Mm-hmm.
plop them on the church property or around, and you advertise, and you'll be surprised how many people will in the end sign up for these Bible studies. Even if you were to just get five, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's a in my opinion, it's a big deal.
Okay. So people, I'm sure there's some people that are listening right now and they're saying, you know what, this sounds good to me. Um, and they would love to get access to this manual, or they would like to get more training on this. Are you going to be selling this manual eventually? How can they get more information? Are there conferences they can go to?
Yeah, we have a summer conference every single year that takes place in July. We call it Campus Leads, Leadership Education Development Seminars. And that's for either university students or people who are interested in public campus ministry, pastors, church members, etc. This it's not this little small manual booklet that we're putting together it's pretty much done. And we'll be putting it up pretty soon in ebook format. And yeah, that'll people can contact us, get a hold of it. We'll be happy to share it for probably a small fee. I'm guessing $2-3.
Sure. Now, tell me the website for the Campus Leads, the conference that you have.
www.campusleads.org, and we
Mm-hmm.
have that's our lead seminar website. We also have campushope.com, and that's our campus ministry website.
Okay. And can people actually contact you directly if they have some questions?
Yeah, my email address is first letter of my name, Ramos at misda.org. I'd be happy to touch base with anyone who wants to talk more about campus ministries.
And if they just really want to follow you on Twitter and kind of see what all is going on in your life, can they do that as well? You have one that you're willing to share?
Yeah, Taratech, 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 sharing a little bit of what's happening in my life day to day. Not so much campus ministry, but I like to run. I'm not a runner, but I like to run, cycle, swim, triathlon. So they can follow me on that and see what's going on in my personal life.
Wonderful. Well, Israel, I really appreciate your time this morning, and I want to thank everyone for watching. Hopefully, this has been an educational time, and hopefully, we can do this again sometime, Israel.
Yeah, anytime, Riley. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. And once again, for Modern Ecclesia, I'm Rodley Ortiz. We'll see you next time.